come together, but we come together to be alone. In the innermost core of our being. In most other social organizations, whether it's some society or subculture out there, or most families, people are together in order to be enmeshed and to be full of noise and conflict and projection and alienation from the self. Here we come together to return to the self, to stop running, to stop blaming, to stop projecting, and to stop identifying with the people in our lives. Because when we join an ashram, we come to recognize that this world of bodies is the illusion. This is Maya. The real life is the life of silence. Our real being is the stillness, where we are absolutely alone. And yet the tendency to run away from aloneness creates all the chatter in our minds. The ego hates to be alone in its own mind. And yet that is where the peace and the bliss emerge. That is where the power comes from. That is where the realization of our divine being emerges in its fullness. And so if the mind is still chattering in meditation, it's very important to ask yourself what you're afraid of. Why the silence so terrifies you that you have to create either chatter or sleep or some other diversion from the silence. And if there is chatter that is not just a monologue, but a dialogue in which you are either having some kind of debate or conflict with another, then you really have to ask yourself, why this enmeshment with the other? What is the fear of going into the aloneness that is the portal to the all-one? Because until we conquer that sanskara of talking in the mind, we cannot discover who we are. We are imprisoned in the illusion of the I thought. We are imprisoned in whatever nightmare it creates. It is breaking the identification with the I thought that leads to freedom. And that's one reason we get up early in the morning, because the ego, the I thought, wants to sleep. And then it wants to move out into action without any time in between to rediscover the true self and to live from the self. It wants to live in its melodramas to avoid the real of life that cannot be put into chatter, cannot be put into narratives, cannot be put into any meaningful context, because the self transcends meaning. And whatever meaning you put into your mind that meaning becomes the prison. And it becomes false. Unless it is a meaning that points you to the silence beyond meaning. And you follow the implications of that meaning and reach the silence. And the meaning itself is an obstacle. Even if it's the highest meaning. Even if it's Ramana's teachings. Ramana always says, when they ask him, what's your technique? He said, well, there is no technique. But if you demand it, okay, ask yourself, who am I? But then Ramana always makes fun of people who just sit in meditation and go, who am I? Who am I? No, it's not about creating thoughts about who you are. It's about realizing you are beyond thought. The I cannot ever be a thought. Because the real I is the source of thoughts. And so we must free ourselves of our addiction to thoughts, our dependency on thoughts. Because the dependency on thoughts will lead to the dependency on what the thoughts represent. And the thoughts will represent possessions, objects of desire, and the desire for embodiment itself and for all of its potential pleasures. And soon from thought there will be action that will imprison you even further into karma and into the backlash of those desires. And so the only way to be free from the karmic implications of thought itself is to be transcendent of thought, to live in that transcendence. And then one can live liberated in life, without enmeshment with others, without guilt for being an individual who is not identified by your relationship to other people, whether it's people in your biological family or even people in the spiritual family. To be free of taking your identity from any other is essential to discovering who you are. And whatever thoughts you have will link you back to those who taught you language, and will cause you to be dependent on that, the family, the culture, the society, the values that are embedded in language, and keep you from discovering the supreme value and truth of the Absolute. And it is only by dwelling in the Absolute, in the silence of being, that we can then come into the phenomenal plane of action and retain our freedom. And act with love that is pure, that is not contaminated by guilt or shame or demands or desire or fear or any of the other egoic emotions and impulses that trap us in the need to be recognized as an entity, as an ego. Because once you're in that mode of needing to be recognized, then you're absolutely dependent on the other, and you're fragile. Because if you don't get it, then you can easily fall apart. Once your identity depends on how the other gazes at you and what they say to you and how they look at you, or if they will hug you or give you whatever kind of sign of love that you demand, or grovel for, you have become a beggar rather than a sovereign. And it's only when we have gained our sovereignty by union with the Absolute that we can come into this plane and give love without needing anything back from the world. And only in that state is the love pure. Only in that state is the love a true gift rather than a purchase of something from the other. So today let us live in that state of oneness with the Absolute that is the only truth of our being. And then freely be able to offer the gift of the divine love that emerges from the Absolute. And offer that gift to the Sangha, to the Ashram, to the universe as a free gift with no quid pro quo, no demand of anything back. And then you will receive back everything. Because that act of giving is the greatest reward. And in that state of freedom, the entire world is transformed. And so this day may you be the blessing to the world of freedom.